Welcome back to another episode of Gumball Love. I'm your host, Melissa Ledger, and today we're going to do a little Q&A. I have so many questions going on in the private Facebook group and just some really cool conversations. So I wanted to get to some of them. I actually did a poll within the group just to see like what topics you want to talk about, what questions you have. So I'm pulling this up right now, and we're just going to dive into it. It's going to be a little bit more relaxed and less structured. Not that my podcasts are extremely structured anyway, but this is going to be a little bit impromptu. But I also wanted to highlight a girl named Lisa who posted her dance video inside the private Facebook group. And she started dancing, was inspired by my dancing journey. And she just posted her in her fabulous pink dress doing a Roomba routine, which I'm just so happy to see her out there dancing. And I'm telling you what, when you start exploring your interests and you do something new and it's outside your comfort zone, it just brings so much of you alive. And it's just so exciting. I just couldn't be happier for her. Going theme within Gumball Love is, for a long time, my content has been so much focused on the gumball guy, which I will continue to always do. But I've just realized that as I got back into the dating world, so much of what I feel like our lives get focused around with the so-called convenience of online dating is, it just feels like everything is like, it's like our lives are, it's like we work and we come home, but then it's like there's this underlying main goal to find someone, and it puts so much pressure on you, and then you sort of feel like this continual failure. And so I want to reverse that to make it where you're living your whole life for your life's purpose, for your friends, to explore your interests, to be on an adventure. And if you meet someone along the way, great. But if not, the adventure is the main purpose, or the whole, it's the plot of the story. And the people we meet along the way are characters in the main story, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm putting that together, but I want to take this search for a guy out of your head as like, oh my gosh, I've got to find a guy. I've actually been watching Sex and the City from the beginning. I usually watch Friends at night, and I was like, oh, I can watch Sex and the City on Amazon Prime. And I thought it would be really fun for me to watch it. And I gotta say, it's the most depressing show ever. And I hate saying that because I really like the show and I like the characters. But as I watched episode after episode, I was like, wow, this is a desperate women that are portraying New York just awfully. And it, like, the theme, I was just getting so annoyed. Each time I'd start a new episode, they were constantly depressed. If they didn't have a date for an event, there was just this obsession with meeting men over and over and over again. And I didn't see them exploring interests or volunteering or doing anything that would actually make them whole as a woman. And I was kind of like thinking, wow, this is supposed to be set in New York. This is supposed to be like empowered women. And I started to kind of realize how this show is 20 years old, and it's not the way New York is at all. This is the best place to be over 40 and single in the world, because most men that you're dating, even online, never married, no children, over 45, even over 55. I mean, so the way they portray New York City is even just like bizarre to me. As I'm watching this, I was always watching it having not lived in New York, but as a single person living in New York, I was like, this is kind of a weird perspective. And I wanted to talk sense into these women and be like, you're beautiful. And they would just get so down on themselves after one guy would reject them, or they didn't have a date to a wedding or some type of event. And so I think that, again, I love the show. And I'll probably always love the show, but I have to say that I want us to start changing this fixation of feeling like you have to have a plus one, or you're somehow more validated if you have a significant other. I got relieved from this as I started spending time around married couples. I'm encouraged by married couples, but I'm also, it's become over the years more realistic to me of what it actually is. And even the best marriages are not the pinnacle of happiness. It's great to have a partner, but these women aren't in perpetual bliss. And so a great relationship requires work, and it doesn't always feel romantic, and they have stresses. And so I look at that and go, if I find a partner that I truly want to be with and it syncs up like they have, then by all means, it's worth it. But it doesn't improve the quality of your life that drastically, because we can do so much as women. We can have jobs. We can do so much. We are so fortunate, especially if we live in a free country where we can make as much money as we want, change a career, go take a class. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of us, we're not even really realizing how fortunate we are. So I don't want to repeat what I did in the last, but I just, as I'm looking at what we're discussing in the private Facebook group, I'm seeing a lot of anxiety around dating. And I believe that this anxiety comes from this standard, or this feeling like we have to have it all together. As I was watching Sex and the City, I would see them make one mistake or one move, and the guy would be like, I don't think we should see each other anymore. These women got rejected for extremely minor things, and they also rejected men for extremely minor things. But I was watching it going, wow, this sends the message that if you make one wrong move, you're going to be dismissed. And they would sit in fear. Like, most of the time, as I watched each and every woman date, they were never being themselves, never their true selves. Remember when Carrie was dating Big, how she said, I'm putting on outfits for myself, and I feel like I'm this whole other person, and I'm exhausted. And I was thinking, yeah, because you're not being yourself. And as I watched Mr. Big, I used to think of him as a major gumball guy, but as I watched it back through, it was like she was just being all over this place, this erratic person. She couldn't just calm down and be herself. And so, in real life, and it's hard to judge fiction, right? Because we're trying to judge the character of a fake person. But I was just watching it going, she looks desperate. She looks like she doesn't know who she is. And that's, I think, what we need to focus on more than anything is, are we being our true selves? Are we showing up who we are? And who is that? And it is okay to say, I don't know who that is, but I think we really need to start asking ourselves, when you're just talking to your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, like when you're talking to people that accept you for who you are, how do you act? How do you hold yourself? What is your personality? How does it come across? That's the person people like. So when you go on a date and you portray somebody different, it is going to be stressful because it's not who you are. And I can tell you that even though I wasn't finding the right guy dating, it was so much easier for me to be on dates. And the summer just looked so much easier, so much more comfortable in my own skin. Like, I wasn't questioning myself and wondering if I was going to be rejected. I was actually just sitting there going, I know, like, evaluating, is this the kind of person that I can be with? Is this the kind of person I would imagine myself with? And maybe on the first date, I'd be like, okay. And then usually by the second or the third, I could be like, yeah, this is not the right person for me. And that part is discouraging. Even if they're nice people, it is a little bit sad because you have hopes, you feel chemistry and you feel spark. I think that's normal to have a little bit of a letdown. I mean, this isn't a perfect process. We're human beings. However, if that guy carries your self-esteem in the balance of that whole date, or if he accepts you or rejects you, that's when we have to take a step out of dating and start doing other things that build confidence. And I've told you over and over that, the way you build confidence is to do things that are uncomfortable to you. And I think we should do those things outside of dating, like getting yourself doing public speaking, or maybe you're a singer, or maybe you need to start a business or a blog, or whatever that thing is that you need to do. Those are the things that are going to bring out who you really are and make you feel more comfortable in your own skin, and make the whole dating process, it's just meeting someone and having a conversation. I want you to stop thinking you need to know how to date, because that's ridiculous. This isn't something, it's not like a sport that we have to learn. All you're doing is meeting someone, having a conversation. And when it's the person you sync up with, you're not going to have skills. You're just going to feel that connection, just like you do with girlfriends that you meet. It's just either, like if I go to, let me try to think of an example. I'll just say a social event. I don't want to use anything specific. Okay, I will use something specific. When I go to the dance studio, I don't perfectly connect with everybody at the dance studio. I like everybody there, but there's certain people that I connect with more, that I can have deeper conversation with, that I sync with, that I just gel with, that there's chemistry, that there's male and female, and nothing romantic is going on there with anyone. It's just that you either connect or you don't connect with certain individuals. And so we have to expect that when we're dating. And so we have to take this pressure off of ourselves to expect that all the time, or expect it to happen on each date, and we're getting our hopes up too high. So here are some more questions that we had. Someone asked, how do I deal with rejection? This was a big one in the poll. The other one was, how do you deal with breadcrumbers, or guys that just string you along? And how to keep your passions and hobbies while in a relationship. So I'm going to answer the last one first, just because it goes with what, like right now, if I meet someone, they're not going to be able to take ballroom dancing out of my life, because it's so ingrained that if they were to have an issue with it, it would be a huge alarming factor. But if I was just toying around with it, or I was trying it, but I didn't really care, then it might be more easy to influence me. So your hobbies and your interests have to be truly things that you connect with. So if somebody wants you to stop doing it, or you disconnect from it because they're in your life, it needs to be extremely apparent to you. So you keep your hobbies and interests because they are priorities. I don't want you to just take on a hobby that's like something you don't really care about, or you're just doing it to have a quote unquote hobby. Do things that you actually really enjoy. And your hobbies and your passions, they have to be things that you're doing all the time. So I would say, if you don't have hobbies or passions right now, or very, very many of them, I mean, you don't have to have a lot, because there's only so much time in the day. But I would say, like, I'm going to go to the museum again this weekend. So it'll only be my second time. So it's not really a hobby yet for me to explore the art and really get into it. But in maybe 8 more weeks, then it would be like, this is my weekend thing that I do. So if some guy was like, I don't want you to do that. First of all, somebody's saying they don't want you to do something, or I would ask you why you stopped. Is it because they told you to? Is it because they think it's dumb? Because a lot of these gumball guys, they come into your life and they make fun of the things that you do in your life because they feel threatened by them. But as I've gotten older and really refined this concept, now I just see guys do that, and I just kind of, it's sort of like, wow, disappointing that you're threatened by that, because I know that if you're threatened by that, then there's no way I can have a relationship with you, because you're already too insecure, and it's just like, then they become like a little boy and no longer a man. So if they want you to stop doing something, if they wanted me to stop doing something, it becomes like their problem, not my problem. And then I just lose interest, because I know that person isn't sustainable. Do you see how quickly I'm able to shift that? Before, I would question. Years ago, I would think, is that dumb? Should I be doing that? And then I would just stop. And I didn't have friends around me to say, Melissa, no, that's stupid. You love that. You need to not let somebody stop you from doing that. And or I would just be doing things privately. I wouldn't be telling anybody what I was just going to work and coming home, and maybe going out occasionally, but I wasn't even really a bar person. So I was always working and traveling. So like I had almost no interests. I would go to movies. That was about it. And I don't even know, like, I barely had favorite TV shows. I was just constantly working. And so when a guy came in my life, it was like work and that guy, and even the work would suffer. where now it's completely different. And because I had to proactively seek this stuff out. Okay. So I've talked about this in other podcasts as well. I don't want to keep going on and on about it, but I really feel like this is going to become more of a primary part of my message, because so many of us have lost ourselves in men and we don't know how to get ourselves back. And then when we are in a relationship, it's so easy to let those things go because the guy feels threatened. If a guy feels threatened by your hobby, I mean, I always flip this around, and I think if I met a guy who really liked Taekwondo and he was at Taekwondo like 4 times a week, I wouldn't think, well, I just really need you to stop doing Taekwondo. You know, like what? That would just seem ridiculous to me. I would just think, okay, well, what nights do you have Taekwondo and what nights do you not do it? And we'll get together on those. I mean, it was just like, I would just think like, we'll get together when you're not doing that. Or I would go to his meets or whatever you call them in Taekwondo. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's part of who he is. So why would somebody want to take that away or interfere with it? So now there is a point where people are so busy that they don't have time for a relationship. There's a lot of people out there that kind of chase, they're online, but then they're like the busy guy. So you just don't accommodate it. I mean, it's like, oh, you're that guy that has to be like super busy, and I'm not going to work hard to get in your schedule, because meeting someone needs to be a priority for that person. And if they meet someone they like, they will become a priority. If I'm not a priority, then it's like, I'm not going to try to high pressure someone into their schedule. Does that make sense? So it's like, yes, that does feel a little bit like rejection. However, I want you to just spend as much time as you can with maybe 2 couples, 3, if you can, as many couples as you can, to see how synced they are in so many areas, how easy it is for them to talk to each other, how much the relationship flows. And it doesn't mean that they don't fight. It doesn't mean that it's perfect. But when I look at rejection differently now, because I know that when it's the right person that I could be with for the rest of my life, we're not going to struggle with like getting together and communication of when we should have a date. When you talk to couples and they establish themselves, I always say like, you know, how was it? And they'll say, gosh, there was no questions. There were no doubts. I didn't have any kind of like, we got together. I didn't have anxiety. I knew when I was going to see him again. We knew we were going to talk to each other again. There was no wondering. He was always there for me. I was there for him. No mystery, no games. It's always really simple from that aspect. So rejection, yes, it stings a little when you're interested in somebody or you think you might be, and then they kind of flake out or end up deciding not to be in your life, or they decide to be with someone else. But I know that if that's the case, that is not worth chasing, because there are so many things that have to be there and have to be right that I find it exhausting to try to pursue something that's just completely like, if it's like 80% wrong, then it's just not worth it. There's never going to be a future in it. And sometimes we do get caught up in it. I've gotten caught up with, we get infatuated. Maybe we fall in love a little bit with somebody, or you start dating them for a while, and there's so much potential there, yet there's so many things that are wrong about it. And so sometimes we have that in between phase where it's like, you want it to work so badly because there's so many things you really like about them. But when you think about long haul, like I always think about things like, you know, buying a home together, or deciding where you take your kids to school, or where you're going to go on vacation, or going back to, like, if I go back to my home state, if somebody dies and there's a funeral. What are those experiences like? Because I see my cousins, my friends, experienced these things with their husbands or significant others. And this is a very easy thing. The husband will make the travel arrangements. They will reach out. I have seen the guy reach out to me and be my friend because I'm their wife's friend. And they take care of things. They treat you well because they're good men. And so sometimes we get a little caught up in being infatuated or being, we meet somebody and we kind of get caught up in the beginning part, but we start to sense that, okay, this really isn't going to work. And so, or let's say he rejects you, he walks away, he goes back to his ex. Whatever the situation is, as much as that stings, you have to know that if that's even a possibility, and it's happened to me several times. We all get rejected. Not that it makes you feel better because I've been rejected, but I think we have to realize this happens to a lot of people, and it's not like they're saying, oh my gosh, I hate everything about you and you're disgusting and I'm repulsed by you. No, they're attracted to you and they wanted to be with you, or maybe they're insecure about themselves. There's a million different reasons, but I think we have to stop and ask ourselves, when I feel rejected, what is the story I'm telling myself? And why do I feel like they're rejecting me? So that could be a whole nother podcast in and of itself. Next question is how to deal with breadcrumbers or guys that just string you along. This was the top question. So this is the gumball guy. I'm just reading the comments underneath this. And let me just see the comments. So the gumball guy, this is what he does. Because one of my friends said this line, I'll never forget. He does just enough to keep you reeled in, but not enough to contribute to your life. So you have a guy that isn't really contributing. He's not showing up for everyday life stuff, but he's sending you texts and he wants to get together, and he's really great in the moment. He's really great when he's drunk. He's really great that one night. And you have so much fun. And you think like, how can I have this much fun with someone and then it can't be anything else but this? It can be really frustrating dealing with these guys. So this comes back to our own self-esteem, our own self-worth, and recognizing that had an audio glitch. It comes from recognizing that we deserve more. So when this is happening and we're accepting breadcrumbs, it means that we need to look at our own self-esteem and say, why am I accepting less than what I deserve? I know it's a big question, but the longer we accept less than we deserve, the lower we are setting that expectation. And we're also putting ourselves in kind of a low vibe. I mean, if you walk into Starbucks or you walk into a restaurant and you look around at women, you can tell who has confidence and who doesn't. The way we carry ourselves, the way we dress, the way we look down or look up, the way we hold our shoulders, our posture, the way we walk. I mean, you can tell. So this is not hidden from all the people that we're interacting with. And this is where I started to make this huge transition from online dating into going, I live in New York, and what am I doing? I'm on an online dating website when I'm a professional and I'm an entrepreneur and I'm building two businesses side by side, one for a full-time job and one my dreams and goals and passions. And I'm doing a podcast and writing and doing coaching and helping people build their relationships. And so far I've helped 15 couples, like 15 women left their gumball guy and found great men. And that's huge to me. And that's only ones that I've been able to see pictures of, that I'm just starting to collect them. So that number is going to continue to go up. Like, why would I spend my time playing roulette on a dating website where the entire dating pool of like all the trolls are there, as well as maybe some good guys? Like, why would I fish in a pond of trolls? Why would you fish in a pond of trolls? Because that's what Match.com and Plenty of Fish and OkCupid and Tinder, they've all become troll sites. And yes, there are good guys in there, but why make that the primary way? I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's like even eHarmony makes it lists and lists of questions where it's like, and then you finally get to where you have the open communication and then it just falls apart. It's like, it's grueling. Like, why would I put myself through this grueling process? Considering I wouldn't put myself through that. I wouldn't put myself through that process to find shoes. Like, would you go to a huge warehouse where 95% of the shoes were completely ugly and you would never wear them for the off chance that you might find one pair that you like to wear, but even that one pair might be really uncomfortable? We wouldn't shop there. I just freaking thought of that. We would not shop there. Like, when we walk into DSW, we have a hard time not picking more than one pair or two or 10. Like, if you go to DSW, you're going to find a lot of pairs of shoes that you like, and then you're going to have to stand there and figure out how many you can buy. And because you know consistently that there are good shoes there. Or if I go down Fifth Avenue or Madison Avenue, I know I'm going to find things because all of the quality is concentrated in that one spot. So I know where to go. We know where to go to shop. And a lot of people, this is the number one question you get is, where are all the good guys hanging out? So I feel like that's a question that's going to continue to be asked, but you can go to an event and be around 50 people, and I don't know how many are good people within that group. You could go to a church. You know, I've brought people to church and they've realized that there's a-holes in church too. You know, like I always say, like, this is a place where we're getting help because we're not perfect people. So even in church, there's not all, all people are people. They're humans. They're struggling. So there is no place where all the good people are. You can go to a nonprofit organization and there will be people there for the wrong reasons. They'll be there because they're trying to get something on their resume. I remember when I did Big Brothers Big Sisters, I found out that people would quit after a year because they wanted mentoring a kid to be on their resume. And I was like, wow, so you'll just leave the kid just to put it on your resume? I mean, it's just like sad. Like, they would let 18-year-old kids out of high school join the program. And not that that's bad that they did, but a lot of them would end up walking away from the kid that they were mentoring, and the kids that really need people to stick with them the most. So even people that are doing great things can be jerks. So we have to get out of our head that there is this place, or I'm going to do these things that I'm going to attract, or I'm going to go to this place, I'm going to find men. This is what they do on Sex and the City. It was like driving me nuts episode after episode. I'm like, they keep going places and then it was like every time they would find a guy, they would get so flirty. And it was like every time a guy expressed interest in them, they would all turn into these giddy little schoolgirls. Oh my God, you're flirting with me. Yes. Even Samantha, it was like, what happened to the lawyer? What happened to the writer? What happened to even Charlotte, who was supposed to be this, blue blood that should have been to a million different parties? I mean, what happened to the dignity and like, why can't you just sit there and talk to a guy like a normal person? I mean, it was just like they would turn into these weirdos. That is just like, I was like, wow, I never saw this watching this show before. I know I'm the killer of fantasy and all the movies that we are supposed to love as women, but Hollywood is rude. And this is really unfortunate that, and now that show is older, but even in more current things like 50 Shades of Grey, there's still this glamorization of this guy and this being swept off your feet and the fairy tale and blah, blah, blah that we're missing. There are very few stories that just say, hey, you're going to be doing something that you like, or you're going to be out and about, you're going to meet somebody. Like, you could be doing a counterintuitively, like, I just want to say, like, just because you do something that's where there are good people there doesn't mean that A, you're going to meet a guy, or B, that all the people there are going to be good. So I want you to go and do things that you actually really want to do. Like when I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and looked at all the different paintings. I didn't see hot guys, and nor was I looking for them, because it's actually an area that I really want to focus more on and learn more. It's just a place where I'm lacking in my education, and I want to make myself better in that area. So I'm not going with the intention of meeting someone. If it happened, great. But I feel like that's also extremely, like, what's the word? Like, not unusual, but I mean, like, if I were gonna place the odds would be low that I'm gonna meet a hot guy just while I'm looking at the paintings. And now watch, I'll meet somebody looking at paintings. But you know what I'm saying? It's just something I already want to do. So do things you already want to do. Go where you already want to be, and take this. If you're watching shows like Sex and the City that make you feel like crap just because you don't have a significant other, I mean, I think we just need to talk to more married women and realize, like, you guys, sometimes I talk to married women and I'm like, wow, it is really not better on the other side. I mean, 70% of married people are cheating. 70%. 70. Cheat. That's a lot. And over half end up divorced. So we still have this stigma around marriage and a ring on the finger and the wedding. And like, even weddings, it's like, same thing, bad food, bad music, waiting around, too long to take pictures. The whole process of a wedding to me is just like the worst. Like, if it were an event, like if a PR person had to run an event, it would never run like a wedding where you made your guests stand around and eat bad food and there's like zero entertainment. And then it's just, if you go to a really bad one, it's like the dollar dance, the chicken dance. And I mean, it's like same old. This isn't the pinnacle of success. It's the wedding day. It's great. I've gone to great weddings where when the couple is actually really in love, it's actually a really beautiful thing where you know them and they really are in love. But how many times have you been to a wedding where you've really questioned it, or you've just been bored? Like, if people could really be honest at a wedding, are they bored? Is this event? I'm not trying to make it like the wedding isn't a big deal, but I'm just trying to like level this out and say, is this really like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever? Like, yeah, you get to wear a dress and do some dances and eat some food and hang out with your friends and family. But we shouldn't be putting this event as like the signature of our success as a woman. And anytime you feel this pressure, I always just think of all the people that are so much less fortunate that may not even eat food. And we're watching shows where they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if the plaza will be available at that time. And it's like we can lose perspective on what's important. All that stuff is not going to be important. And so it always comes back to, what is your purpose? What are you on here on this earth to do? And how many people are you helping? How many people are you impacting or affecting? What is your legacy going to be? If you died today, what are they going to talk about at your funeral? You know what I mean? Like, that's what's important. So they're not going to talk about your great wedding at your funeral. They're not going to talk about how fast you got married. They're not going to talk about if because you didn't have kids. Well, it's really too bad that she died because she doesn't have kids. Like, people aren't going to say that. They're going to talk about your character. They're going to talk about how you impacted their life. They're going to talk about how you impacted other people's lives. They're going to talk about think about what you talk about when you're at a funeral. You think about memories with that person. You think about experiences with that person. Excuse me. We just had my mom's birthday party here in New York, and we spent more on experiences than gifts. And it was so great. Like, the day was magical. And we went to like just, excuse me, so many fun places, and it just made the day so much more special because we had experiences, we were present, we were together, and those memories are so much more impactful. So I want you to just take the pressure off of yourself that everything has to be so perfect. Okay, so one person says, how to get from happily single to actually dating again. I feel like I'm totally invisible. So, and then I asked, what makes you feel invisible? And she said, just in general, I don't know how to explain it, but even when I try online dating, I get a few replies, never seem to be noticed when I go out, never ask for my number or approached by people. It's like I'm just not there. Or maybe it happens and I'm just totally clueless that it's happening. But it seems like all my single friends are having no problem meeting people. While they haven't found the one yet, they're at least being asked out regularly, where I have been dating for about a year and have been to coffee exactly once during that time. Okay. So here's the thing. Like, sometimes there's two things to that. One, I would say that most respectable men are not walking up and hitting on you at random places or asking for your number. That doesn't happen. For a guy to walk up and hit on you, that's pretty rare, I feel like. So online dating is, I think, when you first start and you jump online, there's a lot of activity, and then it goes down to very little. Like you even in New York City, I started to see the same guys cycling through. And so then you think Match.com is lying about how many people are on their site. It was like, oh my God, I'm seeing a guy that I met last year. It's like, I do believe in Sex and the City, that how they portray you can run into people here. You can run. I've run into people here in the city. I've actually run into the same guy I met 2 years ago at an event twice. I couldn't believe it. Ran into him one time online and ran into him at a bar. I was like, oh my God, I do feel like I'm having a Sex and the City moment, because yeah, you can run into people. So sometimes though, I think that if we feel invisible, it's because we feel invisible to ourselves. You're not like doing something that you need to be doing to bring out that, like, that was dancing for me. When I think about how I was before dancing, I was just so uncomfortable in my own skin. I didn't feel confident. All those times I had to take the stage and dance and do things on the dance floor, and my teachers would just consistently push me, and they say I was like a late bloomer, because at first it was just so hard for me to push out of my comfort zone. So if you can find something that, like dancing, where you're like, I can't do that, I'm so uncomfortable, and you're out there and you're like, I feel, oh my God, I can't do it. Like in What About Bob? My lips are numb. Like when you do something like that, afterward, you're like, whoa, I can't believe I did that. Or even if it's like karaoke, maybe you have friends at karaoke and you just sit there and you never sing. Like, get up there and sing once. Like that makes my lips feel numb, going up and singing karaoke, because it's like, you have to really know the song well. And even though the words are up there, it's like, to really get into it, it's hard. And so, but it builds a tremendous, once you step down, people are like, oh, and you realize, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. People really aren't judging me that bad. You really feel like, okay, I didn't die. Or if you can join Toastmasters, a place you have to get up and speak in front of people and develop public speaking skills. If you're terrified, when I spoke at my last event, I got up in front of like 80 women, and I had already competed in dancing, and I was like, wow. Actually, I hadn't done a competition yet. I had just done a couple of mini competitions, and I hadn't done the big competition yet. But I still was like, wow, I don't feel like super nervous to do this. And normally I would have been really nervous, but I had done things that had made me feel more nervous than that. So I was so much more comfortable in my own skin. So I would say if you feel invisible, it's because you're not doing anything that's bringing you to life. You're too comfortable. You're not doing things that are scary. And I'll tell you, like, I've reached a point in dancing where now another competition doesn't seem very scary anymore. So I've got to find something that's going to up the ante a little bit. So I got to do something even scarier, and spice it up too. Create some variety. So you're doing different things. And then, when you're on dates, you'll have all this different stuff to talk about, and you won't feel invisible. You won't be worried about feeling invisible. Because one other thought that comes to my mind about feeling invisible is that we are expecting to put on a show for the guy. And I'll tell you, the guys that I've gone out with, I've chosen to tell them goodbye, because they're boring. they don't have anything going on, and they're just like pushing it to sex too fast. And you're like, wow, you're a good looking guy, you have a good job. But then you're just like, so they're humping my leg. It's like, okay, I got to have a guy that's more evolved and not just going to be a leg humper on date 2. It's like, yeah, it's just, I lose interest because I'm expecting more. And when they show me who they are, it's like, then you can't go back. We're looking for men. And when they hump your leg, they're still boys. They're not evolved. So don't worry about sometimes if they aren't going to get sex, or they're not going to get that high from you, they're not going to get the gumball, then they become disinterested because they're so boring that that's all they are looking for. So if you're not going to give them their little treat, then they're like, oh, okay, I'm moving on. But you got to look at that guy and go, he respects himself so little that he's just willing to move on because he didn't get his little treat at the end. He didn't get his little gumball. It's like, okay, wow, snore festival of lights, like, bye-bye, dude. And it becomes like, even though he's choosing to reject you, you know why he's rejecting you, because he has no depth. So then you're like, yep, not going to give you your gumball, and you're losing interest because you're so shallow. And so it's like, okay, thanks, bye. And so that's how I want you to think about rejection. Okay, so I responded to her that strong women intimidate boys and excite men. You will intimidate some, but the right one will be attracted to your strength, so don't dim your light. So we have to be careful that we don't dim our light for some guy because we're afraid we're going to be too bright. Because the right person is looking for everything that you have. And so if we start, like when I was watching Sex and the City and just kind of binging over the last week or 2, I was thinking, wow, they just show up in all these different outfits and they go to these different events and they have all these expectations of that event and they get themselves all worked up, and then the result they were looking for doesn't happen. So there's this sad walk home. And I realize this is television and they have to create drama, but it's like when you're watching shows like this, it sort of it depresses you as the viewer because you can relate so well to those types of experiences, but those are really, that's examples of very insecure women that are trying desperately to get on page 6, to have the Hamptons wedding or the Plaza wedding, and to attract the guy that's got the right career and it's like they're trying to create the pretty picture instead of developing the intimacy and the connection. I was actually watching how, Aiden, although his character bugs me, like she was like, oh, I have a normal relationship. And it was just like so predictable. And he liked to stay in and she wanted to go out, and she got bored with predictability. It was like, no matter what it was, good or bad, she had to overanalyze it and then make it not good enough. And so it was just so frustrating watching it. I haven't watched the show in a long time, but I was like, wow, this show is sort of a classic standard. Almost every girl, even younger girls in their 20s, are watching this show. And I just want us to be careful that, watch it all you want, but really look at how their self-esteem is riding on the opinion of the man every single time. Remember the one where Carrie runs into Nina Katz, who she was like, yeah, I dated Aiden after you. She's like, ooh, and she had to go do all the research of what is she saying about me, and does Aiden think this? And then she had to go get Steve and talk to him about it and poll all of her friends, like, what did he think? It's like, it doesn't matter what everyone else thinks. You were in the relationship, you broke it off, but she just couldn't stand it. She was obsessing over what all these people may have thought. And I was like, man, this is just a terrible display of more insecurity and not knowing what it is you're looking for and what you're willing to accept, what you need to reject, and when you know you need to move on, and getting really secure. Even you can be really secure in that and still have, someone said that they're in this group that they're even a therapist and they can be attracted to the wrong guy. Like, it doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. I've been attracted to guys where I didn't see that they were a gumball guy until a few dates in, and developed feelings and gotten myself kind of screwed up, like, oh God, like gone through that period, but it's so much faster now. So use this concept to say, hey, at least I'm not taking 6 months with this guy or even 3 months. Like if it just takes you a few dates and you had some fun on the dates, and then you're normal, you're going to develop feelings. Sometimes we develop more feelings than we expect. But as long as we're dealing with those feelings, and then we are employing our self-worth and saying, okay, although I feel these things, I'm going to move forward, and I'm not going to allow this to run my life, and I'm going to keep moving on. I'm going to keep doing healthy things in my life and keep doing well in my work, etc. Like we get ourselves back on track. I think if we expect ourselves to be perfect all the time, expect ourselves to be on track, or never fall for the wrong guy, or never develop feelings, because if you're listening to this and you have a pattern of falling for the wrong guy, it may happen to you again. But we're just going to shorten the length of time that takes in your life, and then eventually you're going to make less mistakes. It's going to take you less and less time each time. And then eventually you'll meet the right person when you're supposed to. But I think that if you have come to this podcast, you've come to this concept, you've been following me for a long time, it's a process. Like some people have been following me for a year or 2 years. It would be interesting to see the average time of using this concept, but we're seeing couple after couple after couple. Like it's starting to really work. And now I'm like, I got to start keeping track of all the couples, because even girls that I have coached that had terrible relationships, that didn't have healthy parents growing up, a whole variety of situations, or they're messaging me and saying, Melissa, I finally found a guy that is consistent. He is reliable. There's no intensity. And they realize that that's okay, because a lot of times we look for that intensity, and when it's not there or it's not as intense, we think, oh my God, there's something wrong. But they've been able to say, okay, I know that Melissa said just because there's not huge amounts of intensity doesn't mean that it's wrong. And they relax a little bit and their shoulders come down. They're like, okay. And then they start to realize, I'm dating a nice guy who really likes me and cares about me and spends time with my family, and will go to a wedding and stay for the whole thing and not complain. I was watching I'm got Sex and the City on the brain, but the wedding that Big wouldn't go to the end with, and she even read a poem at the event, and he got a phone call and took the phone call right in the middle of her speaking, and just so rude, that's the stuff where, and then instead she would just get so sad about it. Well, he needed to hear, hey, he was right in the middle, and you took a phone call, and then you walked out, and now you're complaining because it's not over. It's it's all about him. So there's a lot of aspects where, it was just very obvious where someone's being rude and they need to be called out, and we just can't deal with that kind of behavior. So those are the things that nice guys just don't put you through. Can you imagine if a guy you were dating was reading a poem to a couple and your cell phone rang? You would just be embarrassed that it rang, and you would silence it immediately, and you would hope that no one noticed. You wouldn't actually take the call. You know what I mean? So when people message me and they're like, I met a nice guy, and it wasn't necessarily intense, but it's consistent, and I know that he's there for me, and we have a great time, and I always know when he's going to call. We always know when we're going to go out the next time. I'm never wondering about anything. It's consistent. I feel like he's my friend. They go to events together. And I love some of you that I'm following. We're friends on Facebook. I just see the pictures pop up on my feed. I'm just like, yes, there they are at another event. And I can just see there's a look that a couple gets when I know they're going to end up together. There's just this energy that comes off, and it's they're comfortable in their own skin together, and nobody has to pretend. Nobody has to be anything that they're not. So the key is really being yourself and saying, this is me. Take it or leave it. It's the sexiest thing we can do. And so the goal I want you to have is, how can I get to the point where I'm totally comfortable just being myself, and I don't try to hide anything? And where do I do that best? And start hanging out in those situations. That's why I said, go to places where you have passions about certain things. Maybe it's a political passion. People are passionate at political events, right? So you go there and you can really get animated about the thing that you're just that ticks you off, even if you're mad about it. You can be like, I cannot believe that blah, 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 blah. And you just get into it. And there's a guy that's like, yeah, because da, 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 da. And you could just hit it off because of that. And you could end up connecting with somebody because you're really yourself, and that thing pisses you off, or that thing really gets you excited, and you just want to like, you want to help in that area, and it just makes you motivated. Or like if I were to go to a wildlife rescue, like people were like rude to me about rescuing a bird. Why would you rescue the bird? Like one lady stood me, what are you gonna do with it? And I was like, can you tell I have my crotchety old lady New Yorker? Well, what are you gonna do with the bird? And I said, I'm going to take it to the wildlife rescue on the Upper West Side. Oh, will they be able to help it? I'm like, well, that's kind of what they do. See how you get rude in New York? Because New Yorkers are rude to you. And then you're like, it's like survival here. But it's like, what, you're mad at me for like helping a bird? You know, it's like, I was so annoyed by that. And then you get to the bird rescue. It's mainly, they have it all separated for birds and other types of animals. And so you get to the bird place and they're just like, thanks so much for bringing it. And they're so passionate and excited that you brought this little mourning dove to them. And they're just like, they're pumped about it. And the same thing when I brought this little baby squirrel, like they get it. They are on the same page with me. Maybe some people think that little birds that are injured should just survival of the fittest. And, you know, they should hobble along. And eventually I know there's a hawk that lives in my neighborhood and it would eat that little bird. We literally watched a hawk catch a full-size pigeon in front of my building, swooped down. He actually started eating it in the tree, and then the half-dead pigeon fell out of the tree from really high right in front of my building, and everyone stood there and watched it from like 10 feet away. It was like super graphic, and we're like, is this Manhattan? And we're watching a hawk eat a pigeon like in front of us. We were. So I was like, oh my God, the hawk that lives in here is going to catch this little dove. So like people that get that fully get it. And so I don't have to, if I'm around the right people, then that's me. Like I'm the girl that can't leave the bird. I'm going to spend the $40 in the Uber to pick it up, and I'm going to put it in a box, and I'm going to get it there and make sure it's safe because I feel like I'm responsible. That's who I am. And maybe that's not how another person is, but I'm just saying, like, you're going to start to connect with your people when you start doing things that you are passionate about. And I really feel like my whole message is shifting toward this because, yes, I want you to be aware of the red flags, and I'm going to have to continue to teach you that because we have to know, like, what does the gumball guy look like? What does he act like? But I think that as you develop yourself and your own passions and your own interests, that your life will elevate to a level that it no longer attracts or allows those types of men through very often. Sometimes I've been caught by surprise, so I'm going to put a caution there that sometimes they come in weird packages. So just always keep your guard up because you never know. Some of these people have extremely strong covers, or they just sneak in under the radar and you don't expect it. And if it happens, it happens. You just get through it and you move forward, and you just, when you know better, you do better. But I don't want you to feel like you have to be perfect. I don't want you to feel like a failure just because you haven't met the right person. You know, people say, like, I do this stuff, like I'm the single girl giving relationship advice, and I have all these family members that I go back and see in Nebraska, and I used to think like they're all married and what do I know? I used to think that they were judging me, and then I find out they're following me, they're supporting me, they're referring me to their single friends. They think what I'm talking about is great because as I started to realize couples really like this content because they understand what it takes to build a relationship and they agree with the content. And a lot of times it's actually helped couples realize, wow, I was thinking that maybe my relationship wasn't that great, but after hearing Melissa's podcast, I really appreciate my husband more. And I'm like, yes, this is so great. So, you know, here's the thing. This content came to me and I just, it literally bubbles out of me with zero effort. Like I wake up in the morning and this is what I think about. I go to bed and this is what I'm thinking about. It is my passion. It's my purpose. So I'm following that regardless of how people may judge me or criticize me, because if I never meet the love of my life and I lay in my deathbed and I can look at a wall of like thousands of couples that I helped create, that will be my legend that I leave on this earth, that I created and helped be a part of thousands of couples, because to me, that's like a ripple of love that will last for generations. That's always been my mission. I was thinking, if I create all these couples by helping women see that they're in toxic relationships, by helping them leave and recognize true love in another person, and then they go on and live their lives and have children, and those children have children, like, I don't know how long that will last, but that's enough to make me happy. And then I just was like, where do I want to live while I do that? I want to live in New York City. I'd like to travel a little bit more. So that's in the goal. I want a ballroom dance. Like, I'm doing everything I want to do. Like, I think I said on another podcast, the guy was like, what do you want in life? I'm like, I have it. I have what I want in life. So I'm not looking for a guy to provide a life for me. But on the contrary, not on the contrary, but here's one thought I want to leave you with. I think that when we're on dates, this is something that I don't portray myself as, I am woman, hear me roar, I've got everything I need. I do have everything I need. However, when I look at the amazing men that are in great relationships and what they bring, like if a guy says, what do you want? I'll say, I would love to have a man, my significant other's opinion about things. I think it would be great to have a companion. I think it's great to have someone to go with you to the museum or explore new things and just have that companionship, or someone to go on vacation with. So there's companionships, having their opinion. It's also having someone else's family and their mom and dad and their brothers, sisters, cousins, or whatever. I think that that's an amazing dynamic where you can spend time with someone else's family and you get all these other relationships in as this bonus by meeting this other person. And so your lifestyle changes when you meet someone else. So when you start thinking like, when it's the right person, it really adds more dimension. And so that's the part that I get excited about. Would love to have that companionship. Would love to have someone to lay next to at night. And that is beautiful. But when I lay down in bed, I don't look at the other side of the bed and go, oh, it's empty over there. I don't feel that sense of emptiness, because I know that when someone's supposed to be there, they will. And if they're not, I'm not so unhappy that I just get depressed about it. So I think when we're depressed, we just aren't doing other things that we need to be doing, or we're not taking care of our body. We're not working out. We're not doing anything we don't have anything that's upcoming that we're excited about. Because I'll tell you what, when there's a competition coming and I'm prepping for it, and I've got a couple of sales that are coming through, and I'm doing coaching sessions, and I've got a Gumball Love product I'm creating. You know what I mean? When you're busy doing the things that are filling up your life, you're not looking at your empty side of the bed. So I just want us to take our focus off of that and get more excited about life. And I'm sorry if I sound repetitive lately, but I just feel like this message needs to be like beat into our heads so much, because everything we see in society just makes us feel like we're constantly failures just because we don't have a ring and a husband. And it just drives me crazy. One girl named Renee, she posted a picture of her friend. I love this. She says, instead of chasing boys, we're sitting here in the rapids, laughing our guts off. Both of us women have endured some pretty tough relationships. Thanks for all your wisdom and needed advice. Thank you, Renee. Love this. Just love seeing you guys being happily single, living your lives. And I love seeing you find love too. I just don't want you to feel like you're any less valuable just because you're single. Okay? So that's the most important thing. Because when you look at me, do you think, oh, Melissa's less valuable because she's single? You don't think that of me, right? If you do, shame on you. But you know what I mean? Like if someone's like, well, I need some married, I would love if married chicks did podcasts like this. Like if you know of married chicks that are doing podcasts that are encouraging single women, please tell me who they are. Like I tell married people that are happy, they don't even get it. They're just like, I don't know. I don't really think about it. And just want to slap them. Like you don't even get like the wisdom that you could be telling single women. So I see no competitors in my field. I just want, if people are giving good content, I think that you should be listening to them as well, because you can't listen to the same person over and over again. Put variety in all of your content that you listen to about relationships, but just make sure that you're not falling into someone who's telling you how to attract men. You already attract men. Men are attracted to women. We know that they're not complicated. Guys are attracted to, you're attracted to men, but you're not attracted to all men. And there are things guys could do that no matter what they did, you're never going to be attracted to them. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many things that have to sync up that would be a complete waste of time for a guy to try to figure out how to attract women, because everyone's different. And so I just want you to be focused on how to be the best version of you and really commit to that journey. And just know, like, it's going to take some time, and pick the areas that are bugging you about yourself the most, work on that, and pick things that you're the most excited to explore. Take a day and just do something random and see what happens, and do it without thinking about meeting a guy there. Go join some mountain biking group and see how that is, and then do a half marathon, or do kickboxing, or whatever. Just whatever it is that's like if you're thinking about it, you're like, oh, maybe I should try it, then do it and tell me about it. Post it in the group. So I think that was all the questions. I always have to burp so much when I get on podcasts. I feel like it's like you talk so much and you feel like you can't breathe. So let's see. I'm reading one more. Here's Katarina. She booked a hot air balloon ride. She said, which she's going on with her brother. So see, you can just do something cool, even if it's with your sibling or your friend. Booked a cooking class, basic knife skills, and cooking 101, going solo on Monday. Oh, so freaking cool. Grabbed a ticket for a local soccer game, taking a fitness class with my cousin, and grabbed tickets for a mock seance. What? I don't know what that is. Anyway, I'll have to get back to us with that one, Katarina. So she says, don't feel like you have to do something extreme or expensive, though. There's plenty of cool free stuff around. I frequently look on the events section of Facebook, plus scroll Groupon to find most of my things. So yes, like, don't feel like you have to do anything that's expensive. Look for, especially since it's summertime, there's tons of things going on, little festivals in the street, little art festivals. Do things that are totally like not you, because that's what's going to make you feel like you feel weird at first, but then every time we do something new, it just kind of like awakens a different part of us. And I really believe that this is the key to making you feel comfortable in your own skin and the ultimate road to true confidence. So on that note, I'm going to leave you here. I'm cursed with never being able to do a short podcast, but I just wanted to jump in and chat with you about those things and keep encouraging you along the way, because I know how difficult this path is. So just stay confident. Listen to these things over and over again. Don't let yourself get down, okay? Don't let yourself get into that weird place where you're just like staring at the wall or listening to weird music. Like, snap yourself out of it. Force yourself to, if you work from home or it's the weekend, like, take a shower, do your hair and makeup, put on a cute outfit. That always like changes your mindset if you're dressed for the day. Just do the things, go to the gym, do the things that make you feel alive, and just keep going. And remember, just live your life, and don't worry about impressing large groups of people or the entire gender of men. Just be you, and your life is going to unfold. It'll all make sense. So just stay confident, and I'm trying to be careful I didn't use the word. I said some Casey Kasem quote that my friend Shannon told me about. What does he say? Keep your feet on the ground, and something. I said something similar to that, but now I'm like, oh my God, I'm going into cheesy like lines at the end. So, all right, you guys, I'm going to cut off here, and I will talk to you next time. If you can, subscribe to this podcast so you get updates as it comes on, or as I post new updates. And if you can, leave a review. I would really appreciate it. Just tell anything you think about the podcast, and leave 5 stars if you can, or 4 stars, whatever you really think. But I'd love to hear your feedback. And if you have questions or you want to book a one-on-one coaching, please feel free to email me, melissa@gumballlove.com. And if you want to be in our private Facebook group, just go to my Facebook like page. So it's Melissa Ledger Gumball Love, or it's facebook.com/Coach Melissa Ledger. And at the very top of that page, I have the private Facebook group pin. So you just have to click on there, answer a couple of questions, and then I will let you in. So I will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Until next time.